Mario Kart World has some of the most insane shortcuts. I just got this game. It only came out a couple months ago, so I thought I wouldn't be too far behind. But I was so wrong. These shortcuts look straight up impossible, which is why I'm going to try to master the 5 hardest shortcuts in the game, in order to just stand a chance. What does it mean to master a shortcut? Well, for this challenge, I have to land it 3 times in a row without failing. If I fail even once, I have to start all over. Some of them took me hours, and one completely broke me. Anyways, I'm going to start off with Salty Speedway. In Salty Speedway, you can drive on the side of this waterfall to get on the left side and take the inside lane to save a bunch of time. And my first few attempts were pretty ugly. I could not get on the left path for the life of me. And when I finally did, I ran into a wall and fell off immediately. But then, my next attempt was a bit better. As soon as I tricked off the waterfall, I just held a left drift as hard as I could, and I actually got pretty far. After that, I got stuck for a little while. I kept missing the left path. So I looked back at the world record, and I noticed that he jumps a lot closer to the edge of the waterfall than I do, while I was riding the waterfall for way too long, which probably meant I lost too much speed to make the jump. So I worked on this and eventually started getting the hang of it. And on this attempt, I actually made it all the way to the end, but I ended up driving straight into the boxes. And then, I had my closest attempt yet. I was quickly getting the hang of this one. I wasn't getting it super consistently, but I felt like I understood why I was messing up, which is really good because that means it's all in my control when I fail. I have no one to blame but myself if I mess up, which I did a lot. And about 7 minutes in, I almost made it, but I was just barely not turned enough to ride the last wall. I knew I was going to be able to master this one very soon. For whatever reason though, I could not figure out the ending of the shortcut. Until about 10 minutes in, I finally did the ending. I ended up missing the very last trick, but this was still a huge confidence boost. So I kept going, and my next attempt was very close. I just held my mini turbo a bit too long and crashed into the boxes. But on my next attempt, I finally got my first clean run through. Now I just have to get it 3 times in a row. And surprisingly, I was really close on my next try. And before I knew it, I was really figuring it out. I was still a bit clumsy around the boxes, but I started making it 1 out of every few attempts. And I don't even know what happened on this one. But immediately after that, I made my first 2 in a row. And the third started off really well, but I choked the ending. Which is honestly fine because it's only been a little over 15 minutes, so if I can just keep this up, I'll be done in no time. And only a couple minutes later, I was at 2 makes in a row again, and on the third one, I did this. Considering I literally ran into the tree, I'm pretty happy that I almost saved it at the end. After that, I made the next 2 in a row again, but of course crashed into the boxes on the third. The pressure just keeps getting to me when it comes to my last attempt, but that's why I need to keep pushing. I had a couple more flubs, but after 21 minutes, I made this attempt, but with a pretty sketch ending. Then a clean second attempt. And on my third attempt, I hit the tree, but still somehow managed to pull through and complete Salty Speedway. The second shortcut that I'm going to be mastering is on Whistlestop Summit. I've seen people do this one before and I didn't think it would be that hard to learn, but let me just prepare you now, I was very wrong. Here's the world record pulling off the shortcut. So first, I just need to get on this Okay, no joke, this took me 5 attempts just to get on the rail, and then I tricked the wrong way, which is not promising. After many tries, I finally got onto the second half of the shortcut. But I messed up at the end, so I still haven't gotten it even once after 7 minutes of trying. I kept going at it, and about 3 minutes later, I got this attempt. I was really excited to finally get this far, so much so that I kind of freaked out and jumped off at the wrong spot. Then I used the rewind feature to try to figure out where I'm supposed to jump off since I haven't gotten that far yet, and I did this. So I went to reset myself, and I learned that apparently the time trial ends after 10 minutes, so I had to restart. But my first attempt back was really good. Watch this. Okay, my second attempt. I actually got onto the rail, but then I kinda completely forgot to do anything after that. But that's still progress, which gave me hope. Then, I'm not sure what happened, but I accidentally drove straight into these cheering civilians. And after a few more minutes, I actually got back up on the rail. And this time, I made it onto the wall. But I jumped off a little too far and I didn't make the last railing. And this became a recurring theme. I could not figure out how to get on the last rail consistently. Sometimes I'd get there, but it was always just dumb luck. I never knew why I would get it. And the next time I got on the rail, I tried to learn the timing to dismount at the end of the shortcut, and there's a lot more of a grace period than I thought. I really just have to wait until I can see the finish line, and then I can jump off. I kept trying, and I kept failing. But after about 28 minutes, I finally got a glimmer of hope. I made it one time. Now I just have to make it 2 more times in a row. Yeah, that's about what I expected. I'm sure it looks like I'm learning the shortcut pretty fast, but I've only been showing the good attempts. I've been skipping the other dozens of attempts in between each good one, where I mess up in a million different ways. It's already been 45 minutes, and I feel like I have zero control whether I make any part of this shortcut. I feel like I have to get lucky with each part of it. I honestly don't know what I'm doing wrong. My makes feel just like my misses. I just kept pushing through, just hoping to get lucky 3 times in a row so I could finally finish this challenge. I did not come into this thinking any shortcut in this game would even come close to an hour, but here I am, an hour and 16 minutes into this, and this is my very first time getting it twice in a row. So if I get it one more time, I'm finally done. And not gonna lie, I think I got gypped here. Why in the world did I not stick on the rail? This was the worst feeling, and because of that, I have to keep suffering. And just to make things worse, look at what I did on the very next attempt. I don't know how I was doing it, but I really locked in because I wanted to get this thing done. But somehow, I kept missing the stupid rail. Please somebody explain why I'm not sticking, because if I would have stuck on these attempts, I would have made it 8 times in a row. But I didn't. Even though these attempts were all so close together, I didn't actually get it 3 times in a row because of something that feels completely out of my control. I really wanted to just call that good enough. I mean, that was so close to getting it, would anyone really care? And honestly, probably not, but I would care. I don't want to give up, I don't want to be a quitter, so I kept going. And 30 minutes later, after about an hour and 46 minutes total, I did this. I got it perfectly once, then twice, then this was my 3rd attempt. This time, I decided to call it good enough. I'm so done with this shortcut that I need to move on for my own sanity, but I'm not happy with this. In order to master the shortcut, I need to get 3 clean attempts in a row, and this just wasn't clean. So for now, I'm moving on. But if I truly want to complete this challenge, I'll be back before the end of the video. But for now, it's time to master Bowser's Castle. This shortcut has a reputation for being one of the hardest in the entire game, so I'm going in preparing for the worst. My first few attempts weren't great, but on attempt number 4, I actually got kinda close, so I kept on trying, and some attempts were better than others. But then, only after a few minutes, I actually pulled it off, even though I didn't have the best landing. This honestly shocked me, because I was fully prepared to be here for hours on this one. Of course, 1 attempt doesn't mean much. I need 3 in a row. So I rewinded to before the shortcut, lined myself up, and completely failed. So I tried again, and this time I actually got it, and it was much cleaner than my first make. And I almost made it again after that. And after only a few more tries, I managed to lock in, and boom, 3 clean attempts in a row. And just like that, Bowser's Castle, one of the hardest shortcuts in the game, only took me a little over 6 minutes, which doesn't even feel fair compared to the pain I went through earlier. But don't worry, the next shortcut more than made up for it. Next up is Wario Stadium. This is one of the most technical tracks in the game with countless shortcuts. But for this challenge, I'm going to be mastering this beginning shortcut that the world record is somehow effortlessly pulling off. There's a lot going on with this one, but I think I can pull it off in a reasonable time. To be honest, I don't even know what I was trying to do during my first few attempts. Like, clearly, I was never going to make it doing any of this. After a few minutes, I was getting a little bit closer, but I just wasn't getting enough height on this wall, and the reasoning for this was how late I was jumping off the first rail. I need to get up that first wall as fast as possible for all of the rest of the shortcut to work, and after 10 minutes of painful attempts, I finally got onto the rail. And then, I immediately stage dived off into a crowd of NPCs. But that was progress, and only a couple minutes later, I sorta got onto the rail. Okay, I kinda cheated, but I just wanted to practice the part where I'm up there since I still haven't even gotten there once after 13 minutes. I did this for a while to really lock in the muscle memory. Luckily, this part was much easier than the first part, but that didn't stop me from messing it up. I kept failing, and I started getting frustrated. But after 20 minutes, I did this. Yeah, that surely wasn't pretty, but this was by far the best attempt yet. And only a couple attempts later, I got even closer. I was finally making progress. The wall that was so impossible for the first 20 minutes, I was now getting on almost every time. Now I just had to figure out how to do the second half of the shortcut. And after exactly 27 minutes of trying, I finally got one clean run. Which I of course celebrated by doing some donuts. But as you know, completing the shortcut once does not mean I've mastered it. I still have to complete it 3 times in a row before I'm done, and my next attempt went like this. And so I went back to lots and lots of fails. It took me another 9 minutes before I made it again, and I technically didn't even make it. At this point, I was starting to realize this shortcut is a lot harder than I expected. Every tiny mistake leads to a complete reset. After 40 minutes, my confidence was shot. I only had one clean attempt. So, I knew I had to go into full sweat mode. No more messing around, just pure focus. And magically, I did this. I made my second attempt of this entire run. So I reset and went again. And it felt sketchy, but somehow I made it again, making it twice in a row, so all I had to do was make it one more time. My hands were shaking as I went up the wall, but everything was going perfectly. Until this was heartbreaking, and I needed a break from this one. So at 38 minutes in, I called it quits for the night. But then a while later, I turned the switch back on, switched to my girl Rosalina, and I locked back in. Okay, I didn't make it, but it would have been sick if I came back and made it the first try. But no, I was still making mistakes. But my head felt so much clearer, like I was learning instead of just throwing out random attempts. And because of that, after only a couple minutes, I made it. And not only that, I made it twice in a row, before flubbing the third attempt. But I was okay with that this time, because I knew I was making progress and I was going to get it very soon. And after only a few more fails, after a total of 49 minutes, I had finally mastered the Wario Stadium shortcut. If there's anything I've learned so far from this challenge, it's that sometimes the best way to move forward is stepping away for a little while. And the last shortcut that I need to master is on none other than Great Question Block Ruins. I thought this one looked pretty doable. I mean, I'm actually pretty good at the normal shortcut. I've just never gotten to hit this box before, but it can't be that hard, right? Well, for the first few attempts, I was just trying to get the hang of it. Then, attempt 4, I was actually kind of close. I kept failing. This was a lot more precise than I expected, and I wasn't really figuring it out. But after 10 minutes, I finally hit the boxes. Even though it wasn't very good, I'm still taking this as progress. Then, after a while, I had this attempt, which kind of put things into perspective. So, not only do I have to stay far enough left to hit this box, I also have to stay far enough right to not go out of bounds. And that's on top of like 800 other things I have to do perfectly. Yeah, this one's going to take a lot longer than I thought. Then, about 20 minutes in, I actually hit the boxes, and it did save time, which I'm counting as my first success. Even though it wasn't pretty, the whole point of any shortcut is to save time. And I went faster than just going around the grass. Then, on the very next attempt, I somehow did it again. And of course, I completely messed up the third attempt. So I just went back to slaving away attempts, just trying to get lucky. And there were some close ones, including this one, which I'm still pretty confused by. This shortcut definitely led to some of the funniest moments, like what even is this? 28 minutes in, I had my best attempt by far. I still lost most of my speed, but at least I hit the right box. So I kept pushing through. And let me tell you, this was a struggle. I was not doing well. I literally was just sitting in front of my TV doing the same thing over and over and over again. And after 2 hours, I turned off the switch. I couldn't do it anymore. This shortcut had officially broken me, and I basically decided to scrap the entire video. But when I woke up the next day, I knew I couldn't let myself do that. So I turned on the Switch 2 and rewatched the world record. This time, I copied his bike and used a smaller character, and I studied every single move he made. Then, things finally started to click. I'd like to say overanalyzing this shortcut made me an expert at it, but it still wasn't going great. It took some getting used to retrain my muscle memory, but when I did the right trick patterns, it felt like the shortcut was just that much easier to land. But now, I at least knew why I was messing up, which meant instead of just guessing, I was finally learning, which is the whole point of this video. So I kept on grinding, and 30 minutes later, after a grand total of 2 hours and 32 minutes, I finally did it 3 times in a row. It was not perfect, but it felt like I deserved this victory. This shortcut broke me, but I refused to quit. And while I'm feeling good, it's time to go back to this beast. And it doesn't get much better than this. I hopped on YouTube and look what I found.
Today, I will teach you how to do the Whistlestop Summit ending shortcut in Mario Kart.
A tutorial by the one and only Shortcut was posted literally 12 minutes ago. So I watched this video to learn what I was doing wrong and went straight back to attempting Whistlestop Summit. At first, I felt like I'd forgotten everything. I couldn't even get close, but slowly my muscle memory started to come back. It took me 8 minutes before I finally got my first make, but for the first time, it felt deserved. Like I did everything right and I was actually rewarded for it. But just because I knew what to do didn't mean I could do it every time. This shortcut is very hard. Each part of it is so precise, and if you mess up any of it, you have to restart. Another 10 minutes went by before I made it again, and just a little bit later, I was so close to making it twice in a row. I was getting closer. Every attempt was progress. I could feel myself figuring out Shortcut's method piece by piece. So far, I had spent about 24 minutes trying to learn it, and I was definitely improving. But I still hadn't done it twice in a row, let alone 3 times. Then, about 45 minutes in, I finally hit it twice in a row. I was locked in, confident, and then I barely missed the third. I was beginning to think this was never gonna happen. But then, only a couple minutes later, I was so close to making it twice in a row again. At this point, I started to lose hope. Another 53 minutes went by, and I'd spent a total of 2 hours and 39 minutes on just this one shortcut. And that doesn't even include the other 4 tracks or the time editing this video. At some point, you have to throw in the towel. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not again. Not after coming this far. So I reset, took a deep breath, and went again. Attempt after attempt, I kept failing. But eventually, it happened. I finally made the Whistlestop Summit shortcut 3 times in a row. This would not have been possible without Shortcut. Please go check out his channel. I've spent a total of 6 hours and 27 minutes on just these 5 shortcuts, and I'm really glad I pulled through and never took the easy way out. If you like this video, please subscribe and let me know what you want to see next. Thank you so much for watching.